I'm Josie.
And I'm Julia.
And I'm Emily.
And we're from the Santa Barbara Middle School Team Press, and we're here with
Trevor Hall of Creative Visions.
How did you get involved with Creative Visions?
Many years ago, I worked for a magazine called Double Take Magazine, and we published the journals of an artist named Dan Eldon. And Dan Eldon was the son of Kathy Eldon, who was a photojournalist, and his art went on to inspire many, many people. But I learned about Kathy and Dan and Creative Visions while working for that magazine, and then reconnected with her years later. And we've just always wanted to work together and help other people use media and the arts to make change the way Dan did. So I learned about it a long time ago and then reconnected with her.
As the founder of Open Roads, you help many young people get better education. What is one of your main goals for working at Creative Visions?
Wow, you've done your research. You know about Open Roads. So Open Roads is a program, where we take young people who don't have access to education in the summer, and we do a month-long trip with them. We teach them documentary storytelling and adventure travel, so they get to see other parts of the world. And our real goal is to help them really understand what we all know, which is that by really listening to stories of others and learning to tell our own stories, it can positively impact the choices we choose to make in our own life, and that we really see that we're authors of our own life story, and that we can make whatever choices we want about the kind of life we want to create, no matter whether we've had the best upbringing or one of the most challenging upbringings. So that's my goal, is to help people see that they can be authors of their own story in life.
We understand that after graduating from Harvard, you got awarded a 3-year fellowship with Dr. Robert Coles. How has that affected you and influenced you?
That's a great question. I don't know where I'd be without him. I think of fate, chance, and circumstance, and the accidents, and getting to meet the three of you, and all the things that you don't know are coming. And it was very accidental in the way I met him, but he really was the one that taught me about the power of stories. And he is one of the more influential writers and policy shapers by just using stories, by going out and asking people who are going to be affected by policy, what's your life like, and how would it be better, and what sort of policy. And things like food stamps came out of his just going out and talking to young people in Appalachia and finding out really what would have made their lives better and writing it down, and then getting in front of Congress and getting Bobby Kennedy behind it, and all these people that then figured out the right policy to make, all went back to the fact that he just went out and stood in front of people and looked them in the eye and asked them questions about their life. And so he influenced me more than probably anyone else, just on the power of stories to really help us understand broader social issues and understand other people, and just know that by listening to stories and asking questions while we're here, we can get to know people and maybe feel a little bit closer to them rather than further away from them, which I think is a lot of what we feel when we watch the news and hear about things far away. So he really taught me that stories have the power to connect us.
The theme at our school this year is the power of story, yours, mine, and ours. Last year, you gave a TED Talk called From Story to Consequence. And how do you think stories affect our lives today?
Wow, can I come to your school? That's a great theme for the year. I think that we as humans, there's an innate understanding of narrative that's inside us. We just naturally think about the world through stories. Even when we dream at night, right? It's our mind trying to make a story of what we saw that day, all the crazy things that went on or that week or in our life, and you remember things in your dreams that were just pieces or sounds or lights, and we try to at night put them into story. I think that we just have a natural way of seeing the world that we have to put it into stories that help us really create some order out of what could be a sort of chaos or bizarreness of life, that without stories we may feel a little bit lost, and that it helps us understand that that there's a connection to everything that happens in our life, that we aren't just born and we happen to go here and happen to go there, but there's really a story that this happened and then this happened, which then changed the way we saw things, and then this happened, and so then we chose to go this way instead of that way. And so I think it's really how we stories are the principal way in which we navigate life, in which we learn. I think it's the most important tool for learning and for finding our way in life, is to see things through as stories.
There are many ways to tell stories: words, pictures, and music. If you were to give us one book story for our shelf, what would it be?
Wow, what a great question. One story. One of my favorite stories, which may be a heavy book for now, though I bet you're probably reading it, is The Odyssey. I just think there's so much about adventure and searching and listening that I would put in there. But if I were to combine all those elements, it's funny, you basically just quoted maybe the most sort of fundamental book in storytelling, which is Aristotle's Poetics, and he talks about that same thing, about those different layers of story, and so you're way ahead of most people who make movies and songs and other things. But I would say The Odyssey is one that I just really love. But I would say put your own story on the shelf. It's a strange question, but I think, thinking about what's the music of your life, and what are the words of your life, and what are the pictures of your life, and I'd encourage you to tell that story, and that's the one I'd have you look at on your shelf and go back to and revisit and think about and add to and keep building on. I think that's one of the most exciting stories that you could be paying attention to.
If you were to give us one film story, which one would it be?
Wow. Well, I can only say in my childhood, Star Wars was an amazing story for me. It takes a while to sort of get until I understood as an adult why it was so powerful for me, maybe as a kid. But that was a great one for me. I also, this is going to be a really strange one, but I love the movie Boys in the Hood. It was just, I had grown up always sort of wondering what happened in other parts of our country that I didn't get to see. And I don't think it was a great documentary look into it, but it was just one of those films that first got me curious about how people that I don't get to see every day. I grew up in Chicago, which is very divided. And I was on the north side, and on the south side were just people who were very different than me. And I always was just deeply curious. And that movie really pushed me to think about what it would mean to just reach out and spend time in other parts of my own city. And so that's what I do now, or I did as an adult and still do. So that would be a hard one to say, put it on your shelf. But those were two movies that were really powerful for me as a kid.
If you were to give us a painting or sculpture story for our shelf, what would it be?
If only for the title. There's a Gauguin photograph, and I can't say it in French, but it's where do we come from, who are we, and where are we going? And I think that in the theme of your school about story, I think really understanding that, so where do we come from, what's, just in your own life, but even deeper than that, and where are we right now, and then where do we want to go? And he really thought about it and tried to paint that in a really, I think, a beautiful painting, but also fundamental. And then the other one I would say to look at is anything by Edward Hopper. I think he's just, he just looks at the subtleties of life, just the way a room is lit, or the way people can sit in a room and be next to each other but not really know each other, or be far away from each other but feel very close. I just think his paintings make you really appreciate little simple things in life. So those would be my two.
If you were to give us one musical story for our playlist, which one would it be?
Oh, man, these really are tough on-the-spot questions. I think this is maybe one that you'll laugh at, but one of the great storytellers, musical storytellers that's out there is there's two, and they can be very different, but I think Dolly Parton is a great songwriter. If you can go find some of her bluegrass songs, you'll be surprised that they're by her. And then there's also one that's by, it's a rap song that basically is the lyrics are taken from a Toni Morrison novel, and I'm trying to remember the name of it right now, and it's blank. I will send it to you, but it's it takes a very powerful book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, and then takes just a paragraph out of it and turns it into a song. It's Mos Def and Talib Kweli are the two artists, and I can't remember the name of the song right now. But that would be an interesting one from a storytelling standpoint, to see how two rappers took a really classic novel and made it into a very articulate hip-hop rap song.
Finally, I'm a dancer, so what dance story would you add to our shelf?
What dance story? I mean, I just love watching Gregory Hines and the way he used to dance. He was a tap dancer, and then I would just I would make myself watch So You Think You Can Dance, because some of the people on there was actually, this is the one I would put on. There was a performance on So You Think You Can Dance that was in honor of breast cancer, and it was one of the most beautiful dances I've ever seen, and told a story of the experience of going through breast cancer. There's the female dancer, and then the experience of being there for somebody as they go through it and as they come through and they're healthy and vibrant and alive again. If you can find that one, that would be the one I would say as a dance story, and how somebody told a story physically through dancing that was just so powerful.
In our social studies class, we are reading a story about a lost boy of Sudan. In the book, he says, let's see if I can find it. There it is. I hope they will have stories at my school. If they don't know how, perhaps I can teach them. It isn't such a hard thing. All you must do is say, once there was, and then let your hoping find the words. So if you were to start the story of Trevor with once there was, where would hope take your story?
Once there was a boy named Trevor who hoped that people would care about his story and understand his story and care about him for all the ways that he's imperfect and perfect, and so that he might in turn be able to do the same for other people.
Thank you for your time.
Do I get to ask you any questions?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. So, your theme of your school is?
Power of story, yours, mine, and ours.
Power of story, yours, mine, and ours. Have you thought about, at this point in your life already, what your life story has been? Is that something you think about, or is it too early for that?
Sometimes, not in depth, but a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked us some questions about, because last year our theme was the power of story, what's your verse? And they asked us all, what our verse was, what we were bringing into the world, and it was, being a good friend, or, an excellent student, or whatever you wanted to be and whatever you thought you were, and, yeah.
Wow. So, my one other question, because I'm really curious about this, you will interview so many people, and you've already interviewed some, and you've practiced on each other. What's the one thing you've learned from asking other people questions that already that's sort of been exciting or challenging or moving? If you could say, interviewing people has taught me.
That everyone's different and they have different answers, and sometimes for same questions.
That's a great thing to learn.
One of the things that we kind of learned in the class is that people who are big and stars and who are famous, they just want to be normal. And people who, are just not big and famous sometimes want to be big and famous. So we kind of try to just make them feel how they want to feel, normal or cool, or stuff like that. And I love that part.
Great answers.
Yeah, we interview some people on the red carpet at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival and stuff, but then we also interview a homeless man on the street, because everybody has a story and everybody has a background and everybody's interesting, even though the world isn't focusing on everybody. So
You three are awesome. That's so cool. Thank you for making me feel cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.